Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got a guide for the new crew changes that have come into play as of yesterday's update. As always, if you do like the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe down below as it really does help out the channel. So, what we're going to do for this video is show you some generic crew setups for different types of tanks in both Cold War and World War II that you can copy past it into those tanks or those types of tanks and it'll get you 80 to 90% of the way there. And you can tinker from there to suit that specific tank that you'll be playing. Because these crews won't 100% work for specific tanks, what they'll do is they'll get you 80-90% of the way there, where they'll get the tank into a good fighting order, and then you might think, okay, no, I don't want to take that skill, I might drop the expert gunner for clutch braking to make the tank turn faster, right, for that squall crew that you can see there. Or you might think, you know what, I'm not going to sit in bushes, I'm going to drop the green thumb and run something else. That's the whole point of these crews, it's to stop you having that indecision moment that a lot of people will probably be having right now, where they look at the crews and sit there going, I don't know what to take for this type of tank. Absolutely no idea, and then sit there like that kid in the candy shop with just too much choice, not knowing what to do, and then not end up doing anything. So the whole point of this is so that you can take that generic crew, copy pasta it into the tank, and then tinker for that specific tank. In terms of equipment, it's a lot harder because I think there's a lot less variation in the crews now, to be honest. I don't think they've hit the nail on the head with the crew variation, as a lot of crews will overlap. But equipment-wise, there is a lot of variation depending on the tank, and every tank is pretty much going to be different in terms of what you want to take on that tank, so we're not really going to go over that too much. What we'll end up doing is doing what we always do, and when we make videos for specific tanks, you'll see both the crew and equipment setup for that vehicle, and that's where you'll have to find out with the equipment. It's not changed too much with certain vehicles, as you'll still be running the gun loader or the gun rammer, the gun stabilizer and optics on a lot of vehicles in World War II. You'll just have that fourth slot, and that fourth slot will be deciding whether you want to take an ammo swapper or take a turbocharger or take grousers to get extra track traverse. You know, it's that sort of thing. So we're not really going to cover that much in this video. We're just going to stay focused on these crews. So as you're going to see here with the setup that we have, these crews aren't for the specific tanks that I'm putting that disclaimer out there now. These crews aren't for the specific tanks that you're seeing right here. So this is not a crew that's going to be going in the E5, for example, because the E5's gun handling is that good. I'm not going to run snapshot or run and gun. But that's what I'm talking about in terms of tinkering for each tank. The way I've set it up is so that I've got heavy tanks side by side, tank destroyers side by side, medium tanks side by side, and light tanks side by side. So the crews don't necessarily correlate to the actual tanks they're in. It's just more for the type of tanks, right? And we've got that for Cold War as well, as you can see here. But we are going to start with World War II, and with the heavy tanks, we're going to have this as a generic heavy tank crew, and that is Born Leader, Snapshot, Run and Gun, Rapid Aim, Clutch Braking, Situational Awareness, Radio Jamming, Armour Angling, and Track Mechanic. So Track Mechanic, naturally, as a heavy tank, I might be a brawling heavy tank, and getting your tracks blown off can happen quite often. If I've already blown my repair kit to get my tracks back on, it's nice to have that fallback of if I get tracked again, because it can happen where you repair your tracks and you get instantly retracked. I can get my tracks back on 25% faster. Armour Angling, to reduce the amount of damage coming into my tank, because naturally I might be, as a heavy tank, go brawling, so reducing the amount of damage coming into the tank can be quite nice, especially if you run that in conjunction with advanced armour, or whatever it's called. Is it armour hardening now? I think it's called armour hardening now, which eventually will increase your HP and not reduce the amount of damage coming in, but they'll change that in the future. But you could run that with the armour hardening and reduce the amount of damage coming into your tank by 10%. Radio Jamming, because I feel like this perk is going to be necessary for most vehicles, because you might be thinking, well, I'm a heavy tank, I should be playing on the front lines, I might be expected to be spotted a lot of the time anyway. True, but if there's going to be tanks out there running Comms Expert, which you will see here, which is a 3-second increase to the duration of target enemy's detection time, if people are going to be running that, you're going to be spotted for 13 seconds instead of 10. So we're going to run that perk on most vehicles just to counteract that Comms Expert, pretty much. And then the benefit is if the people aren't running Comms Expert, you're only spotted for 7 seconds, which is definitely lovely. And especially if you're crossing gaps, that can be very, very handy. If you're crossing to a rock, get unspotted, it'll help you cross to the next section faster, right? Situational Awareness, because you want to run that on pretty much every vehicle in World War II, because you need to have good or decent view range so you can at least spot for yourself and not get outspotted too badly. Clutch Braking and Rapid Aim, because, well, quite a few heavy tanks have slow track traverse or slow turret traverse, so we're just helping the general mobility of the vehicle and that making it feel not that lethargic. That's why we're doing that. That's why I run that. But again, these are perks that when you come to tinker for a specific tank, you might go, this tank's track traverse is really good, but the turret traverse is rubbish. So I'm just going to get rid of the clutch braking and run something else like supply conservation to get food back faster, or general mechanic to get my tracks back faster, or if they knock out my gun, it repair the gun faster. Or I get set on fire all the time, so I'm going to run fire safety training instead. You know, this is what I'm talking about in terms of these are generic crews, in that you can drop certain skills here and there and suit it to the tank you're playing. So if I was playing the BZ-72-1, for example, I would drop clutch braking. Or actually, I probably would drop clutch braking, and I would definitely run fire safety training 100%, because that thing gets set on fire all the time. You know, it's really down to you and how you're going to set up for the specific vehicle you're taking. Bear in mind, these are just generic crews. Run and gun, snapshot, because we're helping the gun handling on accuracy during turret rotation and during movement as much as possible. And you might think, well, that's just making it better at firing on the move, right? Well, it's not just that. It means the aim circle will be a bit smaller when you turn the turret and when you move, which means it doesn't take quite as long to be able to aim the gun in, which can be quite handy. And Born Leader, because the 5% increase to skill effectiveness and crew performance is still a rather large bonus, and that will help with your DPM, gun handling, all that good stuff that has been obviously nerfed down as much as it can be. So you want to be running Born Leader for that as well. So that's generic heavy crew tank. Heavy crew tank number 1. Yes. Heavy tank crew, number 1. Brain did a brain type thing. So, generic heavy tank crew, number 2. As you're going to see, there's not that much variation. So, we're taking Born Leader, Run and Gun, Snapshot, Situational Awareness, Radio Jamming, Track Mechanic, Rapid Aim, Armour Angling, and Expert Gunner. So I decided, okay, I'm taking it because I feel like the clutch braking is fine. I'm now running Expert Gunner for the 6% increase to the chance of damaging enemy crew and modules with non-HE shells. So bear in mind, if you're in a tank that fires heat or HE only, that perk does not work. And especially doesn't work because it's a 25 decrease to the effect that distance has on the shell penetration as well. So shell penetration drop off over distance. This Expert Gunner is Deadeye and Iron Mace together. It's quite a nice combination of a perk. But naturally, if you're firing heat or HE, that perk doesn't work whatsoever because there is no penetration drop-off over distance for heat or HE, and they won't be affected by the increase to module damage, so do bear that in mind. Armour Angling, again, naturally, reducing the amount of damage coming into the tank by 5%. As a heavy tank, we'll be brawling a lot of the time, so we want to just do that. Rapid Aim to make that turret traverse better, so that, again, we can get the turret snapped onto target left and right, but again, you could definitely change that out for clutch braking if the tank is slower in terms of track traverse than the turret. You've got Track Mechanic again because you're brawling, and as I said earlier on, nice to be able to keep the tracks back on quicker if you've already put the tracks back on with the repair kit. Radio Jamming, as I went over earlier on, because naturally, if you're getting spotted, it's nice to be able to reduce the time you're spotted by down to 7 seconds. And also, we are counteracting Comms Expert, which increases the duration you're spotted by, so you would be spotted for 13 seconds. So if you're running radio jamming, you're only going to be spotted back down to the normal 10 seconds. So you're not really getting spotted for too long in that regard. Situational Awareness, again, because we wanted to make sure that we're not getting out spotted. The 2 gun perks for the same reason, make sure this gun is as good as possible. And Born Leader, because we want to make everything about the tank as good as it can be. Like I say, not much variation. It's just dropping a perk here and there, pretty much, for different types of reasons. And again, you might think that the turret traverse and the track traverse is already really, really good on this vehicle. So you might go, okay, you know what? I don't need rapid aim or clutch braking. This tank is held back by its ground resistances. So you're going to run off-road driving instead. Say like on an IS-7 where the ground resistances are terrible, so you have a great top speed but terrible ground resistances, you might run off-road driving to get the ground resistances down so you can hit your top speed that little bit easier. Again, these are just generic crews. These are different types of ways that you could tinker with these crews to get the best out of a different type of tank. So now we're on to the stealthy turretless TD crew. And you might be going, T95 is not stealthy or a stealthy tank. Well, actually, it kind of is at 263 meters of still concealment. That's pretty good. But yeah, so this is a crew for a stealthy turretless tank destroyer. Something like an ISU, for example, that's got good camo, but it's got no turret. So we're taking Born Leader, Run and Gun, Situational Awareness, radio jamming, comms expert, track mechanic, clutch braking, camouflage expertise, and green thumb. Green thumb to get the camo factor down by 10% while in a bush, because naturally, as a turretless tank destroyer, or as a tank destroyer in general, you're probably going to be in a bushy location, waiting in ambush for someone to drive into your gun line, and you're going to fire at them, and that will help you stay unspotted, or at least keep your camo down while you're in that bush. Camouflage expertise to just keep the camo down in general, because that will always be helpful for the stealthy type of tanks. Clutch braking, because naturally you don't have a turret, and tanks getting around you can be the death of a turretless tank destroyer, so getting the track traverse to be faster is something that can always be very handy for the vehicle. Track mechanic, because again, getting the tracks blown off can be death for a turretless tank destroyer, so getting them back faster if you've already blown your repair kit can be very, very handy. Now, comms expert and radio jamming. Radio jamming is going to be lovely again to reduce the amount of time we're spotted for, so it can knock it down to 7 seconds or 10 seconds to counteract people using comms expert, which keeps things spotted for 3 seconds extra. Now, if you're in a TD and you're in a bush and you spot something at a decent distance, you will also be taking comms expert to just keep them lit up for an extra 3 seconds, because if you're keeping them spotted for 13 seconds, the likelihood is you might get a shot into them and then keep them lit for that extra couple of seconds, which gives you the opportunity to get an extra shot into them before they become unspotted, especially if they get further away. So it gives you that chance to possibly get an extra shot into someone. Now, again, it's a perk that you might not take, because you might think, well, I'm not going to spot for myself, I don't see the point in that, so you could definitely drop it and run something like Expert Gunner to increase the chance of doing module damage and decrease the effective distance over your penetration, right? So there's plenty of different things you could take. You could take armor angling as well if you were in a TD like a T95, where you want to reduce the amount of shots coming into your tank by 5, or reduce the damage coming into your tank by 5%, but that might not be something that's as effective on something like the SU-130PM or the Scorpion, where you're really hoping to not get spotted and not be taking hits. You might take supply conservation instead to get food back faster, or, as you are a turretless TD, take general mechanic instead as well, which will help you get your tracks back on faster in conjunction with your track mechanic, making you basically not be tracked for very long at all. Again, generic crew. You can tinker with this quite easily to suit the specific type of tank you're in. Situational awareness, again, you always want to have the best view range you can possibly get in World War II, so that you can try and spot for yourself at least, and then not get outspotted too easily. Run and gun to just knock the accuracy during movement down as much as possible, because again, that keeps your aim circle bloom down by doing that, and means you don't have to spend as long aiming because your aim circle is smaller. And then Born Leader to generally increase the effectiveness of the vehicle. But yeah, that's a generic crew that I would run for a stealthy turretless tank destroyer. Again, does it suit the T95? Maybe not, maybe. It's not for specifically the T95, it's just a generic crew for a turretless stealthy tank destroyer. But now we're on to a tank destroyer that is a turreted one, but also a more brawly tank destroyer. So we're running Born Leader, Snapshot, Run and Gun, Clutch Braking, Rapid Aim, Radio Jamming, Comms Expert, Situational Awareness, and Track Mechanic. So Track Mechanic, again, to get the tracks back on faster, because it's something you always kind of want to do, so you're not getting perma-tracked very easily, especially at Tier 10. That can be pure pain if you've got some of the higher DPM vehicles that can perma-track you. It's nice to be able to have that Track Mechanic to stop that. Situational Awareness, again, increasing your view range so you're spotting for yourself, you're not getting out-spotted too easily. It's something that you just want to do on most vehicles. Comms Expert and Radio Jamming for the same reasoning as the stealthy turretless tank destroyer. Again, you could definitely drop Comms Expert if you thought you're not going to keep things spotted, or you're not going to go spotting for yourself. But since you're on the front line, again, keeping things spotted for that extra bit of time can be handy. Because especially if you're on a corner fight, right, and you're fighting 2 or 3 tanks, say on the corner of El Haloof, and you notice, because you're keeping a tank spotted for 13 seconds, that one of the tanks has peeled off and is spotted for longer than they expect. So you actually notice them creeping around the side and you think, okay, they're coming up behind us, I can go shoot them. It's very, very handy for that. But once again, it's quite easily droppable for something like Expert Gunner to increase the chance of damaging enemy modules, or off-road driving, again, for some vehicles like the E4 that don't have the best ground resistances, so it helps you get to your top speed to get into the action a bit easier, right? Or you could run Armour Angling again as that more brawly tank destroyer. It's more like a heavy tank. You could definitely drop the Comms Expert for that. Or again, General Mechanic. Or this thing gets set on fire all the time. You could run fire safety training. This is why I say these are generic crews. These are crews that will get you 80 to 90% of the way, and then you can tinker and change skills here and there to suit the specific tank that you're in. Again, I really hope that these do help people just to be able to copy pasta in and go, okay, no, actually, this tank doesn't need that, I want that instead, and sort of stop you being paralysed by indecision on these crews that you're seeing, that you go, oh my goodness me, all of my crews have changed, I just don't know what to do. So now we're on to, again, a more brawly turretless tank destroyer. So instead of being that stealthy turretless tank destroyer like we had on the T95, although it's not a stealthy turretless tank, but wait, actually, again, I'm not being harsh to the T95, it's quite stealthy. But the E3 is a brawly turretless tank destroyer. It's not got the best camo in the universe. It's going to be up close and personal in people's faces. So that kind of tank destroyer, what are we running? So we're running Born Leader, Situational Awareness, Track Mechanic, General Mechanic, Run and Gun, Clutch Braking, Radio Jamming, Armour Angling, and Expert Gunner. Now you're seeing where we're similar to what I was saying about what we'd have run on the brawly turreted tank destroyer, but we've dropped Snapshot. So we've got Born Leader to increase everything about the tank, Situational Awareness, again, because you're going to be running these two generally on everything. Track Mechanic to get the tracks back on faster, as we are a turretless tank destroyer. Again, getting tracked is paralysing for this kind of vehicle. General Mechanic to get the tracks back on even quicker, and if they knock out your gun and things like that, again, that will increase the speed of repairing those modules. Run and Gun to be able to get the accuracy during movement down, so again, that aim circle is a lot less big, or is a lot smaller, sorry, while you're on the move. Again, helping your aim time out so it doesn't take as long to get the gun aimed in. Clutch braking to be able to turn the tank faster, generally, again, so that if something's trying to get around you, you can counteract that by having faster track traverse. Radio jamming, because I feel like, again, that's a perk that probably is going to be taken on everything, just to reduce the amount of time you are spotted for, as that can be very, very handy. And also, it counteracts Comms Expert if light tanks are running it. Armour Angling to reduce the amount of damage coming into the tank by 5%, because, again, with that bit more brawly, we're getting stuck in. Just having that extra little bit of hit points that you can bleed out of that can be quite handy. And then Expert Gunner, again, we're increasing the chance of doing module damage by 6%, as well as decreasing the effect of penetration over distance on my shells, which can be pretty handy. And what is that on an E3 anyway? Oh, well, you know, you get 287mm of penetration at that distance and 367 on the APCR. So you can see it's that sort of difference, right? But, yeah. That's what I'd run on a brawly turretless tank destroyer. Again, generic crew that you can take and then tinker with if you feel like different bits and bobs of the tank. Like, again, you could decide, you know what, I'm not going to be firing on the move. I'm just going to take run and gun off and run something else. Like off-road driving to help the ground resistances, or supply conservation to get the food back faster. You know, these crews are there for just tinkering with. The T114 Battalion. So this is our stealthy turreted tank destroyer. This is just our stealthy crew for a tank destroyer, generally. This is just a general stealthy tank destroyer crew. So, run Born Leader, Snapshot, Run and Gun, Situational Awareness, Camouflage Expertise, Green Thumb, Radio Jamming, Comms Expert, and Expert Gunner. Now, this fits something like the T114 Battalion, right? Because you can play it a bit more scouty at times, and then you have the better gun handling with the Snapshot and Run and Gun. You're helping the camo out as much as possible with both Green Thumb and Camouflage Expertise, because you can go get better camo in a bush, and also have the better camo in general. You can spot for yourself a bit easier with Situational Awareness. We're running Expert Gunner as well, because, again, we're increasing the chance of doing module damage and decreasing the effect of firing... decreasing the effect of distance on our shell penetration. Now, again, this is probably the reason I actually put Expert Gunner and put this tank in general to do it, because Expert Gunner does not affect the T114 Battalion at all, right? So the T114 Battalion fires pure heat or HESH, which means that your penetration over distance is exactly the same no matter what, because they don't lose penetration over distance. And add to that they fire heat and HESH, the other ability of Expert Gunner also doesn't work on the T114 Battalion. So that's what I'm saying about that the crew doesn't match the tank. That's where you tinker, because for this tank, for example, you definitely wouldn't run Expert Gunner. You'd run something else. You might run Rapid Aim to make the truck traverse better, or Clutch Braking to make the track traverse better, right? But generally, it's nice to have that on a lot of the TDs, and especially since they have bigger guns, bigger alpha, bigger module damage. Increasing the chance of doing module damage by 6% is something that can be very, very nice, and especially increase the chance of setting someone on fire, or breaking their ammo rack, right? So that's why we run it. But again, this is where I say it's not for every specific tank that you're seeing in this video, because you wouldn't run expert gun on the T114 battalion. But it's a stealthy tank destroyer, so that's why I put it in it, because it kind of makes sense in that regard. But yeah, we're going to keep things spotted for a bit longer, stay unspotted for less time ourselves, keep the camo running on the tank to be a lot less, and then generally making the gun handling on the vehicle better as well. So yeah, that's what we'd run on a stealthy tank destroyer. In terms of a medium tank, so a more brawly medium tank, and again, it doesn't really fit the tank as much because the Centurion Action 10 has such good gun handling, you're probably not going to run some of the stuff, but hey-ho. So on the Centurion Action 10, or should I say, on a brawly medium tank, again, we're not paying attention to what the tank is that we've got the crew in, it just makes it easier for visualization. So for a brawly medium tank, we're running Born Leader, Situational Awareness, Run and Gun, Snapshot, Radio Jamming, Comms Expert, Armour Angling, Rapid Aim, and Trap Mechanic. Again, there's not much variation in some of these setups for the different kinds of tanks they are. This is where the variation comes in for specific tanks. But if I was to sit here and make crews for over 1,000 tanks and do that, that would be one hell of a long video and it'd be pretty boring. So again, generic crews that help people out in general. So, you know what, I'm taking out a brawly medium tank that's not really got much camo, like a Centurion Action 10 or an M48 pattern or something like that. This is the kind of crew I'd run where I'm not focusing on camo or trying to just knock the camo down a bit. So Born Leader, Situational Awareness, Run and Gun, Snapshot, Radio Jamming, Comms Expert, Armour Angling, Rapid Aim, and Trap Mechanic. Trap Mechanic to get the tracks back on faster in case your tracks do get blown off and you've already used a repair kit. Rapid Aim to make the turret traverse better so that we can snap the turret round on target faster and get the gun firing, get the DPM flowing. Armour Angling to reduce the amount of damage coming to the tank. Again, you're probably thinking about dropping that if you don't care. And running Expert Gunner, again, to reduce the penetration over distance, but also for increasing the module damage. Or you're running Clutch Braking to make the track traverse better so you feel the mobility to be even better. Or you might say that the medium tank you've got has not that great ground resistances. You might be running off-road driving instead. Again, it's all about that tinkering. You can tinker one or two skills here and there to suit the tank you're playing better. Again, as a medium tank, we're probably going to be spotting for ourselves quite a lot as well. So we're running situational awareness naturally to make our view range better, but also these two, as we're keeping the targets that we want to be firing at lit up for longer. And then if we end up getting outside of their view range, we're also unspotted for only 7 seconds or 10 seconds if they're running Comms Expert. Snapshot and Run and Gun, like I say, to make the gun handling generally better, but some of the medium tanks you're going to be playing don't need these either. But again, it's tinkering to the specific tank you're playing. And then Born Leader on every single vehicle. So in terms of a crew for a tank, for a medium tank that is, that's a bit more stealthy, so you might be thinking something like a Leopard, for example. We're going to be running Born Leader, Snapshot, Run and Gun, Camouflage Expertise, Green Thumb, Situational Awareness, Comms Expert, Radio Jamming, Expert Gunner, reducing the penetration over distance, the chance of doing module damage by 6%, keeping things lit for longer, staying unspotted for longer, naturally, Situational Awareness to keep the view range as high as possible so we can spot for ourselves, Green Thumb and Camouflage Expertise to make the camo better, so that especially if we're using a good bush location, and I'm thinking somewhere like the Mid-Ridge on Westfield, that can be so lucrative for getting spotting damage and damage yourself, as you can poke through a bush, spot people crossing, I think it's the K line, you can spot people crossing that line, pull back behind the bush so it's no longer see-through and fire through it, and you'll stay unspotted a bit easier by running these, and especially if you're doing it in conjunction with silent driving or whatever it is, low noise exhaust or the flash hider. These two perks do just make the gun handling generally better as well, but again, there are quite a few vehicles, especially tier 10 mediums, that have really good accuracy during rotation, so you might get rid of the snapshot and run something else and keep run and gun to keep the accuracy during movement down, because there is quite a few vehicles that have very good accuracy during rotation, but not as good accuracy during movement, so you might drop that for something like Rapid Aim, again, Clutch Braking, the Trap Mechanic to get the tracks back on faster, reduce the amount of damage coming to the tank by 5%. It's really down to you and how you want to play that vehicle. But this is a crew that might be useful in something that's a bit more stealthy. Something like a Brask, for example, as well, where the gun handling is not very good, but the camo is very good, and you want to help the camo out and then keep the... It's a pseudo scout at that point. You can go spotting for yourself as well, right? So now we're on to a light tank crew, and there's not much variation in the light tank crews, to be honest. I don't feel like I'm going to change up my crews too much. I've got a more active one and a less active one, and the difference in that is quite literally not taking Green Thumb. So we're taking Born Leader, Snapshot, Run and Gun, Camouflage expertise, radio jamming, comms expert, situational awareness, expert gunner, and clutch braking. Clutch braking to make the tank turn really quickly. Again, help with the general feeling of the mobility for your more active light tank, so that we can outmaneuver our opponents very, very easily and just duck, dodge, dip, dive, and dodge the shots as they come flying in. Expert gunner to be able to increase the chance of doing module damage, but it's not that we're looking for on a light tank, because it's a perk that is very, very valuable to a light tank, because penetration drop off over distance for light tanks is huge. It's a massive drop for quite a few light tanks. So having that 25% decrease to the effect that distance has on a shell penetration ability is a massive thing for a light tank to have, because take the Panzerwagen, for example, that you can see with the next crew. That Panzerwagen loses 50 millimeters of penetration at 500 meters. 50. Goes from 240 to like 192 or something like that, which is huge, which means you struggle to pen things at distance, whereas if you run in this, it's a lot less, which can be handy. And it's like that on a lot of light tanks. It's one of those things that light tanks have as a sort of a class thing. They keep their camo while on the move, but at the same time, they lose a lot of penetration over distance. Situational awareness, naturally, because we want to make the view range as good as humanly possible. Comms expert and radio jamming, as we've said previously, to increase the time things are spotted for and to reduce the amount of time we're spotted for as a scout. It can help to get you more assistance damage by keeping things lit up for longer. Camouflage expertise, just to reduce the general camo of the vehicle. Snapshot and run and gun to get the gun handling down as low as possible, because quite a few of these light tanks don't have the best gun handling, so doing that can be very handy for these light tanks. And Born Leader to just keep the general tank getting better. And in terms of a more passive-y kind of scout, and I say more passive-y kind of scout, generally if you know you're going to be switching it up between being active and passive, so running to bushes where you can spot sitting in that bush, you can keep your camo down, but then also knowing that you're going to be running and gunning at times as well, you can run Green Thumb. And for the Panzerwagen, we're running Born Leader, situational awareness, camouflage expertise, run and gun, snapshot, Green Thumb, radio jamming, comms expert, expert gunner. Again, expert gunner for that 25% decrease to effect that distance has on shell penetration ability, because as we're going to show you with the Panzerwagen, we've now got 207.2 pen at 500 meters, which might still sound poo, but if I was to go and drop that, we can now see with the Panzerwagen we've got 194 pen at 500 meters. So that extra penetration over distance is pretty handy for the vehicle, as it means you'll pen a lot more plates at distance than you would without it. But that's why we run Expert Gunner on some of the light tank crews. Again, for spotting, keeping things lit up for longer, keeping yourself not spotted for that long, making the gun handling generally better, as a lot of the light tanks don't have the best gun handling, and then keeping your camouflage better in general with the camouflage expertise, and then being able to sit in a bush and have that better camouflage while in a bush, which can be handy for a light tank if you're going to go passive scouting, and situational awareness and Born Leader to just generally help the view range and the general tank in general. But yeah, Green Thumb can be handy for passive scouting, but it gives you that flexibility to be either a passive scout and go into a bush and have better camo while in that bush, but also have general better camo. Again, there's not that much variation in the light tank crews that I actually will run. I think most of my light tank crews will be something like that. It's just that some of them will have better gun handling than others, and I might drop certain things for other things. Or there might be a meme crew, like for the T49, where it's not got the best camo in the universe, but it's a derp gun, so I'm going derping, right? So I run other little bits and bobs that can help me with that. But yeah, that's what I run in terms of generic crews for all these different types of vehicles. I hope they help out with being able to just copy-paste it into a certain specific type of tank, where you can then go and tinker with it for the tank that you want to take out. That's what I'm saying. Again, these are purely generic crews that will get you 80 to 90% of the way. Tinker with them, as it is free for the next 27 days to change crew skills all the time. So keep messing with them to fit the specific types of tanks that you are playing, or the specific tank in general that you're playing, and these crews will hopefully help you get over that paralysation of choice, that kid in a candy shop type of thing, right, for World War II vehicles. So what we're going to do now is go into Cold War. And well done if you're still this far. Hopefully I will chat to this thing so it's a little easier for you to find the specific type of tank you're looking for, because this is going to be quite a long vehicle. But we're now... quite a long vehicle? Yes, Brain. Quite a long vehicle. Well played, Brain. Pat on the head. Pat on the head. So, Cold War vehicles. We're starting off with light tanks. So again, 2 different types of just generic light tanky crews. So we've got the generic light tank crews, we've got generic MBT crews, and then generic crews for turretless TDs, essentially. Or, sorry, say, ATGM only vehicles. That's what we're going for. ATGM only vehicles. So, for the generic light tank, Born Leader, Camouflage Expertise, Green Thumb, Situational Awareness, Comms Expert, Radio Jamming, Snapshot, Run and Gun, Supply Conservation. Supply Conservation to get my smoke back as fast as possible, so that I'm always ready to pop smoke where I need to, where I can then pop an ATGM into someone and go, oh boy, they're looking at me, they're angry, they're angry, they get angry when an ATGM hits them, so you can get smoke back faster when you've already popped it. Snapshot and Run and Gun to make the gun handling in general better for a lot of these light tanks, but again, some of the light tanks have really good stabilization, so you might not even need these. Hence, the Marder 1A1, to be fair, has fantastic stabilization and doesn't need these. The Radio Jamming and Comms Expert, again, because if we're a light tank, hopefully, we're lighting up vehicles for longer. So that's what we want to do, as well as staying unspotted for a little bit less time ourselves. And then Situational Awareness to just increase view range again. As a scout, as a light tank, it can be quite nice. Although some of these vehicles that are light tanks play more like tank destroyers, but I get the point. You get the point. As a scouty kind of vehicle, as if you might take this for Era 1 or for Era 2, this will help you with the build to be able to go out and spot for yourself and get some good assistance damage, spot for your team, and hopefully you'll get some big assistance damage from ATGMs flying into people, that sort of thing. Camouflage Expertise and Green Thumb, again, we're keeping the camo in general down on this vehicle, but because of the way that Cold War is, you can quite happily drop Green Thumb and run something like Rapid Aim to make turret traverse better, or Expert Gunner to, if you've got a machine gun type of vehicle like this Marder, you could run Expert Gunner to be able to increase the chance of doing module damage with every shell that hits the tank with the machine gun. Or you've got Armour Angling to reduce the amount of tank damage coming into the tank. Fire safety training to reduce the chances of getting set on fire, as well as reducing the amount of time you are set on fire. Plenty of ways you can set up the vehicle. This is just a more scouty build for a Cold War light tank. And then for another Cold War light tank type of crew, you could run Born Leader, Camouflage Expertise, Green Thumb, Snapshot, Run and Gun, Situational Awareness, Radio Jamming, Comms Expert, and Expert Gunner. As you can see, there's not really that much variation, and we've taken Expert Gunner. So, again, there's plenty of different ways you can set it up. You could decide, okay, I'm going to be playing more of a tank destroyer type light tank, you know, the type of light tank that has a lot of ATGMs, will play a bit more on the periphery and just flow ATGMs into people, and you could definitely drop Green Thumb for something like Rapid Aim, or Clutch Braking is also a very valid skill for these tanks, so you could definitely go, okay, you know what, for these generic ones, I'm going to run Clutch Braking instead, and that will help the general feel of the mobility of the vehicle, and to be able to outmaneuver some of the MBTs, which is a perfectly valid skill to take as well. But yeah, there's plenty of different ways you can set up these vehicles. That's just another generic crew for the Cold War light tanks, again keeping things spotted for longer while getting unspotted quicker yourself, damaging modules, keeping the penetration over distance down, Clutch Braking to help your track traverse so you can turn faster, Run and Gun, and Snapshot again to help the gun handling as much as possible so you can hit your shots, especially while on the move and running and gunning, which a lot of these light tanks do like to do. Camouflage Expertise just to knock the general camo of the vehicle down so it's a lot harder for you to get spotted, and also make it so that you can be a bit more sneaky and get those ATGMs off on target. And Born Leader just to generally help the vehicles out so that you get the best out of it. So, generic MBT crews. So for the generic MBT crews, we run Born Leader, Run and Gun, Snapshot, Track Mechanic, Expert Gunner, Rapid Aim, Clutch Braking, Radio Jamming, and Armour Angling. So we're running Born Leader, naturally, to get everything on the tank to just be that 5% better. Run and Gun and Snapshot to make sure that the guns are as good as humanly possible. Now, these, again, don't really apply to some of the Era 3 MBTs, because some of the Era 3 MBTs especially, and this is, again, where you tinker for specific tanks, the Era 3 MBTs have such good accuracy during rotation and movement that you just don't need those. You don't even need a gun stabilizer. Take an Osario, for example, or an M1A2. Their accuracy during rotation and movement is that good that you don't need a gun stabilizer or those 2 gun perks, and you can focus on other things. But again, that's where you can tinker. Track Mechanic to get the tracks back on faster, naturally. So if you get tracked and you've already burnt your repair kit, it's a little bit faster to get the tracks back on. And you see that ATGM coming, you know, oh boy, I can get my tracks back on and run. Expert Gunner to just increase the chance of doing module damage, which is always something that you can do for the memes. Again, you could drop that for something else, like Situational Awareness to help you spot for yourself a bit easier, or For some of the MBTs that can go ramming, run dynamic driving to increase your ram damage and decrease the ram damage you take yourself. Because quite a few of these MBTs can ram very, very well, unlike the 30Bs that you're looking at right now, but you could run dynamic driving instead. Again, it's the way you can definitely tinker with all of these crews. Some of these MBTs set on fire all the time. You can run fire safety training instead of expert gunner. It's really, as I say, down to you and how you want to set up for that specific vehicle. These are just generic crews. Rapid aim and clutch braking to make the general feel of the MBTs better with the turret traverse and the track traverse. Radio jamming to reduce the amount of time we are spotted for, yet again, because that has changed in Cold War. So make it so it's only spotted for like 7 seconds. And armour angling, as we are in MBT, we're likely to be taking hits at times, reducing the amount of damage coming into the tank by 5%. And again, you can run that in conjunction with the armour hardening, or whatever it's called now, to reduce the amount of damage coming into the tank by 10%, right? So, as a combination. So that's just a generic crew for an MBT. What's another MBT crew that we could run as a generic one? Again, there's not much variation, but born leader, situational awareness, snapshot, run and gun, rapid aim, clutch braking, radio jamming, comms expert, armour angling, reduce the amount of damage coming into the tank by 5%. Comms expert and radio jamming, because as an MBT we might be further forward, and so we'll be in the thick of it, so we're keeping things lit up for longer, hopefully getting some more assistance damage by spotting, and also reducing the amount of damage the amount of time we are spotted for by 3 seconds if we're trying to run away. Clutch braking to make the general track traverse of the vehicle feel better, rapid aim to make the general turret traverse of the vehicle feel better, and then snapshot and run and gun to just get the better gun handling out of the vehicle. Once again, it's quite easy to go, you know what, if I'm going to be on the front line and getting stuck in a brawling, especially in an Era 3 MBT, I might not care about how long I'm spotted for. I'll keep things lit up for longer so that I can have a better chance of getting some assistance damage, especially on tanks that are running away. But because, you know, when you're in a wolf pack, sometimes people go, oh no, that's a lot of people, and run away. So if you keep them lit up for longer and people shoot at them, you might get the assistance damage yourself. But you might go, okay, I'm going to be spotted all the time. I'm just going to drop radio jamming and run expert gunner, or again, dynamic driving for that ramming, or off-road driving to help the ground resistances, which don't really affect most of the Cold War vehicles anyway. Or, again, a general mechanic to get either your gun or your tracks or whatever repaired faster. Or supply conservation to get food or smoke or patch kits back faster too. Again, really down to you and how you want to kit out the vehicles. These are purely generic crews for just putting into your tank, and it will make it at 80 to 90% effective, and then you can switch out 1 or 2 crew skills here and there to get the best out of it. So, the ATGM only type vehicles. So, with this crew, we're going for that more stealthy crew, which generally a lot of the ATGM only vehicles are anyway. So, born leader, camouflage expertise, green thumb, situational awareness, radio jamming, comms expert, clutch braking, rapid aim, supply conservation. Supply conservation so that we are getting our food, our patch kit, our smoke back as fast as humanly possible, so that we can use it again and again and again where we need it, especially smoke, because they are vital to these ATGM only vehicles for smashing someone with an ATGM and then running away and be able to get away without being seen. Rapid aim to just increase the turret traverse so we can get the ATGMs on target faster, because quite a few of these ATGM only vehicles have quite slow turret traverse. Clutch braking to make the general feeling of the mobility better as well, so that we're not feeling that lethargic while turning left and right. Comms expert and radio jamming to again increase the amount of time we're spotting people for, making it easier to get our ATGMs out on target, but also reducing the amount of time we're spotted for, so that once we're fired and we've put the ATGM in, we get unspotted in 7 seconds, we can get away that little bit easier. Situational awareness to increase the amount of time you're spotting people for, and also just so we can spot people at further distances, because these vehicles, like the ELC, even SS12 now, with the fact that they've got a lot worse camo, will have to play in and around the periphery, but also they will have to be very, very careful about where they're going. So if you can spot things at further distances, it gives you a better chance of getting the ATGMs out on target and slamming people with them, and then, again, being able to pop smoke and run away. So spotting things can be great for you, and also, it can be a bit more scouty in that regard as well, even though it's a tank destroyer. It can be that bit more scouty, spot things at further distances, and you'll get a lot more assistance damage as well. So you're not always useless in the fact that sometimes when things get too close to you, you can't really do anything. At least you can scout for your team, or some of the ATGM vehicles, you can actually run out of ATGMs, you know, that sort of thing, so you can at least scout for yourself, essentially. Camouflage expertise and green thumb, again, so that we can help our camo out in general while in a bush, or with the just standard camouflage expertise, because that can be pretty handy, especially if you want to wait in ambush, say in an ELC, even SS12. because this vehicle is pretty stealthy as it is. It's very, very small. It is actually quite hard to spot it or to see it physically. So if you can sit in the bush, you can stay unspotted and then go, haha, I found you, ATGM, smash into someone and then pull back. And they never knew you were there. Born leader to generally increase everything about the vehicle. And then in the other one that you see here, we've got that born leader, camouflage teeth, green thumb. Again, we're just increasing everything about the camo, rapid aim and clutch braking to make the track traverse and the turret traverse better. So again, we can get the ATGMs on target faster and then feel better in terms of our mobility. Supply conservation again for the smoke, patch kit, repair kit, everything to get back faster generally. Radio jamming and comms expert, because again, generally with the camouflage of these vehicles and where they're playing, they will be wanting to stay on. They will want to get unspotted quicker. Always, they will always want to get unspotted quicker, so they can get out of dodge and not get chased down. Because naturally, if things get too close to them, they can't really do much. And comms expert to keep things spotted for 13 seconds or 10 seconds, depending on if they're running radio jamming. So again, you're getting that assistance damage, and it's also giving you longer to have that target acquisition. And track mechanic, because again, a lot of these vehicles, if they get tracked, can be dead in the water, so it's nice to be able to get those tracks back on faster if you've already burnt the repair kit. So we're just basically thinking, okay, you know, as a Cold War vehicle, I'm not really bothered about increasing my view range possibly, so we're not taking situational awareness instead, we're taking something like track mechanic. And naturally, as an ATGM-only vehicle, you don't have to worry about running on a snapshot because you don't have to worry about your dispersions. The expert gunner will not work with ATGM, so there's no point in it. Again, no point in gunsmith. There's quite a few perks in here that are no point for ATGM-only vehicles whatsoever. So you might be running something like armor angling instead, or general mechanic, or one of the fire safety train, safe stowage, or pain tolerance, right? So there's not as many perks for ATGM-only vehicles that are actually that useful, but yeah. That's what I run in terms of some generic crews for Cold War. Again, hope they help out so that you can just copy pasta into the tank and then decide, okay, I don't need that for this vehicle. I'm going to change that out and run something else. So you might go, okay, I'm in my Asario. My Asario's gun handling is very, very good. I don't need run and gun or snapshot. I'm going to change that out as well. There's plenty of different ways to kit out these vehicles. There's no real right or wrong way. It's down to how you are going to be the most effective in that tank for how you play it in terms of your play style. And yeah, once again, I hope that it just helps in not having that paralysed kid in a candy shop moment where you sit there going, oh my god, all my crews have changed, what do I do? Hopefully it gives you that sort of help. So yeah, that's the video for the crew and equipment change, well, the crew changes generally for the specific type of tanks. Like I say, in terms of the equipment, it's different for every single type of tank. It's going to be very much the equipment. The thing is with this update is that the crew system changes. There's not that much variation in what you can do with some of your crews, and some of the changes that would have been quite handy for specific types of tanks haven't come in yet, like having the Pyromaniac one or the Rocketeer one, you know, that sort of stuff. So we'll see when they come in at some point in the future. But yeah, in terms of the crews, there's not that much variation in what you're going to be taking in terms of your crews, to be honest. In terms of the equipment, there is a lot of variation. They've hit the nail on the head with the variation that you'll be taking, because it's not like before where you'd be taking rammer, stabs, optics on everything. Still be a case of doing that on quite a few vehicles in World War II, but you've got that fourth slot, which then is adding some variation as well in terms of whether you take ammo swapper, powertrain, etc., etc. And there's also quite a few vehicles that can't run a gun stabilizer or run a gun rammer that also adds to massive variation in in equipment setups. So that's why I've not really covered it, because there is just, it's completely down to the vehicle you're playing as opposed to having a generic setup for a set of equipment. But yeah, that's the video. I hope that's helped. I know people have been asking for this video, so I hope that's helped you all out. And if you did like the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe down below. And what we'll do is we'll see you next time, when hopefully the next video will be on the level 100 season pass tank that you'll be able to get for free. So as always, everybody, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.